All right, hello and welcome to day 35 on the CDT. Today is going to be another answer questions day, and I think this is going to be a two-parter, meaning that I'll address some questions today. I know I addressed them in yesterday's video, but today's questions are focused on gear, and that's what I think I need to split into two. So I'll cover some gear today, and then I'll cover some gear probably sometime this coming week. The gear that I'm going to cover this coming week will be, excuse me, my tent. And I've actually received a few questions about the tent I'm using. So instead of just explaining it, I thought I would record a video while it was set up so I could just show the tent itself. I'm thinking about actually replacing my tent. So if I do that, we can discuss what I replace it with. But I'm not going to set the tent up in the hotel room. So essentially we'll focus on some pieces of gear, and then I'll grab the tent. And if I have a piece of gear that I didn't cover today or don't cover today and you have a question about it, you can just text me and I will I'll cover it when I cover the tents. So gear wise, one of the first rules for gear is to avoid packing for your fears. And what I mean by that is if you're sitting in your house before your hike and you think, well, this could happen, well, this could happen, well, this could happen, this could happen, and you start packing all of that stuff into your pack's going to be extremely heavy. And the rule of thumb that people try to use on through hikes for the pack weight is if you have your base pack weight, which is meaning your gear without food and water, then you add your food and you add your water. That, again, depending on how much water you're carrying, like in the desert, this is going to change. But for just a normal trail where you're getting regular water, through hikers try to keep their packs around 30 pounds. Some people go for under that and they succeed. Some people go over that by a few and they succeed. So it's just dependent upon each individual person and what they want to carry. So for one example, I carry what is known as an X-Ped sleeping pad, and I'll show that to you in a few minutes. And the X-Ped is nice because, one, it blows up to about 6 inches. Is that 6 inches? I don't know. It's fat. Two, there's down inside the sleeping pad, so it adds a layer of insulation to the ground. So I have issues where for the longest, I cannot remember how long, like I know in my 30s, probably in my 20s, whenever I camp and I sleep on the ground, my hips hurt. And the way that I found to avoid that is making sure I have enough padding so that I'm not sleeping directly on the ground. So the sleeping pads that are just foam, that are tiny, or I consider them tiny compared to my X-Ped, or even the blow-up pads that you can get a little bit thicker, those don't work for me. So the X-Ped allows me to sleep without pain in my hips, and it's a little bit heavier. So that's a luxury item, quote, luxury item, that I've decided to carry, which makes my pack a little bit heavier. So every person has those little types of necessities that they have on the trail or preferences. And so you see, that's where you see the fluctuation in the pack weight. So I thought I would cover my sleeping pad and my sleeping bag. I'll cover my cooking setup. I'll cover my water setup. And then I'll cover a few odds and ends. But what you want to do is you want to avoid packing for your fears. And so if you ask yourself and you're looking at a piece of equipment and you say, is there anything that I can use in replace of this that would work at just as well or close to? So one example is first aid kits. If you're going on a hike, you're like, I could break my arm. So why don't I put a SAM splint in my first aid kit? You can do that. However, most people hike with trekking poles. If you're hiking in the woods, there's wood, like there's actual limbs from trees. So if you're going to carry a SAM splint, that's fine. It could be your personal preference. Um, it's not very heavy, but at the same time, it's still weight. And that's one thing I learned through my through hikes is you have to count the ounces, not the pounds, because the ounces are where you actually save weight. And so if I um, don't carry a SAM splint and I rely on, like if I need to make a splint, I rely on trekking poles or I rely on pieces of wood, I can add clothing, which most people are carrying extra clothing anyway. Like for example, this shirt I carry with me for towns or warmth, but otherwise it's just in my pack. And so you can put this shirt between the piece of wood or your trekking pole and the brake. Let's say it's, in the arm. So you put the padding around it, which is clothing. You put the splint, which could be, a few pieces of wood or your trekking pole. And then if you carry an ace bandage, you can wrap the ace bandage around and it'll actually firm it up. So the padding adds two things: protection from the hard surfaces, whether it's wood or your trekking pole, but it also adds firmness when you put the ace bandage around. So I prefer to carry just an ace bandage, and that saves me from carrying a SAM splint. So that's just one example of how you can save weight in your pack, of thinking, hey, are there other things that I can use in place of this, meaning I don't have to carry this piece of equipment? If the answer is no, like, hey, you can only use that piece of equipment to accomplish something, then you're going to need to bring it. However, if somebody says, hey, I'm going to carry a traction device for a potential femur break, femur breaks are less likely. Can they happen? Yes, they can. However, carrying that piece of equipment for the slim possibility that you're going to break your femur, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to carry that traction device and the weight in that traction device versus the risk of breaking your femur? So those are the types of questions you can ask. So I'm going to give you one example here of equipment that I need to have. This is a spot. And again, the warning, I'm going to mention some companies. They're not sponsoring this video. I'm not receiving any money from them. It just happens to be the equipment I'm using. But this spot device, it allows me to send check-in messages every day. So people know, like my family know that I'm safe every day. I can also have a custom message that says like, hey, my schedule's changed. I'll contact you once I get to an area with service. It also has two types of SOS buttons. One is an SOS that goes through the company, the spot company that will contact search and rescue. I have a second backup just in case search and rescue can't get to me. Then I have some insurance that will come and pluck me out of the middle of nowhere. And so on my spot device, I've programmed one of the buttons that a message says, Eric's in trouble, call this company, and give them the coordinates. And so I know that this device is the most cost-efficient way for me to protect myself if something bad happens. So I carry it. Now, some people will pay extra on their, I think it's their mobile devices for extra satellite coverage, and or it's like satellite texting, so you can text live instead of having like pre-programmed messages. But the pre-programmed messages have worked for me, so that's what I use. But I also don't have the tracking, so you can have a button on here where it'll track you. I think it's every 10 minutes it'll ping you. And so it leaves like little tracks on a map. I don't have that function. I'm carrying it for the SOS. And so I know that this device is something I need to carry, so I carry it. Let's talk about water. So I've talked a lot about water and the water sources in the New Mexico section. And so I use a Sawyer squeeze, and I think almost every thru hiker uses a Sawyer. I've run into a few that use tablets. I do carry a small supply of water purification tablets, actually two different kinds. And so if I get to a water source that's really sketchy and I don't trust it, and I think I may have mentioned in one of the videos, like one of the cow ponds I didn't trust. So in addition to filtering, I'll also put in the tablets, but I'm carrying a very small supply of tablets. There are people who carry enough tablets for water every day instead of the Sawyer Squeeze. The difference is this filters the water. So when you run the water through the filter, it filters out the junk, and it also filters out like bacteria and other things that could get you sick. And then it comes out clean on the other end. The tablets don't offer a filter. So if your water has bugs in it, if it has cow shit in it, if it has any type of, anything in it, you're not filtering that stuff out using the tablets. The Sawyer Squeeze is nice because if it does get clogged, you just there's a plunger they send, and you just backflow or backwash it, and it will clean out your filter. So this, you can see, is like, if I compare it to the Spot, it's very handy and small. It doesn't add a lot of weight. This is ounces, not pounds. And so that's what I'm using for water, is the Sawyer Squeeze. You basically fill a squeeze, either bottle or a pouch, and you squeeze the water through, and you put it into whatever receptacle you want to drink. You'll see, like, through hikers a lot of times will use the smart water bottles, because the smart water bottles fit on the end of this very easily, and they're more durable than regular water bottles. So that's why if you see other through hiking videos, you could see the smart water bottles. Cooking. So two things I'll mention about cooking is the stove and then my cookware. The stove, so I use an MSR stove, and back in the day, so back when I did the PCT, for example, the company MSR had two stoves. One was called the Pocket Rocket and one was called the Mini Rocket. I had the Mini Rocket on the PCT, and it was a small stove. MSR, I believe, has combined the Pocket Rocket and the, sorry, my hair keeps falling in my face. They combined the Pocket Rocket, the Mini Rocket, so I think they made the Pocket Rocket a little bit smaller and the Mini Rocket a little bit larger. But basically, I use a Pocket Rocket. Again, it's made by MSR. You'll see here that it has three places for your pot to sit, and you'll see that this goes directly on fuel. So you twist it on the fuel canister, and the fuel canister acts as the base. And again, this is ounces, not pounds. It's very light and tiny. It also, like off screen, I was doing something with my hands just a second ago. You'll see here that it's collapsible. And so it's easy packing because you can collapse the stove, and you can pack it pretty easily in your pot or wherever you want to keep it. So if I remember correctly, depending on the temperature and the fuel you're using, I believe it boils water in something like 4 minutes. So it's very quick. The pot I'm using, this is it's called Evernew. It actually has a lid. The lid's over there. This is titanium. It comes from Japan. It's a company I found when I was researching ultralight. You can see there's a handle, but the handle actually goes into the pot. You have to be careful not to burn it. So you can see there's one burn spot. You have to, because it's so thin and it's titanium, you have to make sure that when you're cooking, you're mixing your stuff. If it's just water, that's fine. But if you're actually cooking stuff in the pot, you just have to make sure not to burn it. But this is also ounces. Like, I believe actually my pot, just holding it next to my stove, my pot is lighter than my stove. This thing is like air. So it's Evernew, Evernew, and that's what I'm using for my cooking equipment, the stove and the pot. I mentioned shoes yesterday. One thing I did not mention in shoes is gaiters. I think I've mentioned gaiters like in the video, but I haven't shown them. So gaiters are basically items, pieces of clothing that you wear. Like this is your calf up here, and then this is your shoe. And so if you've ever gone to the shoe store and you're buying trail running shoes and you see a piece of Velcro on the back of your trail running shoes and you say, well, why would they put Velcro on the back? It's for these Gaiters. These are used by ultralight runners, ultra distance runners, because they're ultra light. They're just cloth. And again, we're talking about ounces. They cost $22, I think. So they're very easy to replace. The woman who owns the company, she's also an ultra distance runner. The company's name is Dirty Girl Gaiters, and they have all these awesome colors. So I just got a new pair. The pair I was using in New Mexico had foxes on them. This one has butterflies, and we obviously get interesting suntan lines with these, but they prevent rocks, dirt, and other things from getting in your shoe. So especially when you're hiking in either mountain rocky areas or the desert, you don't have to stop every 5 minutes and empty your shoe out because you got rocks and stuff in it, because this keeps it out. So basically the way it works is this gets latched onto the shoe, the Velcro in the back gets latched on the bottom of the shoe in the back, and then this just covers the entire shoe and then goes up your ankle. So that is how the lightweight Gaiters work. Entering Colorado, I have a different pair of Gaiter. They're a tall Gaiter. They're made out of, I don't know if it's Gore-Tex or what it is, but it's definitely a tougher material, and it's because we're going to be hiking through snow. So, and we made post hole, so I'm not going to use the cloth Gaiters for that situation. I'll use my more, or the taller and more durable Gaiters for the snow. Trekking pole. I only use one trekking pole. I don't use two in each hand. I found that I like only one. I'm using, I think it's Leaky is how it's pronounced. How's that showing up on the screen? That's not showing up very well. It's Leki. You can see that my pole actually collapses pretty small. It also has a section that comes out, and this section that comes out is what makes the entire pole extend and tightens up all of the cords. This is, you can see here, it is a carbon pole, and I think this is actually the model from Leaky. So it's the Micro Viero Carbon is what I'm seeing here. So basically I can press this in, collapse it, and I can put it in my pack. So the reason why it's collapsed right now is not because I'm a hotel. It's actually because we don't use them on the road walks. If we use them on the road walks, it would just kill the end of the tip or the end of the trekking pole. So the fact that we were on asphalt all day coming into Grants, I did not use my pole, so you can see it's collapsed. But very lightweight. I used an older Leaky when I was on the PCT and the Colorado Trail. It was the same one for both trails, and that one was not carbon. It was, I can't remember if it was aluminum or if it was, I don't think it was steel. It may have been aluminum. But I liked Leaky. Again, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I could be mispronouncing that, but that was a durable pole. I had that pole for more like 12 years, I think, or that set of poles. And so I went with Leaky again, and this carbon's really nice. It's lightweight, and I'm not having any issues where it's collapsing on me while I'm hiking, or the components breaking. So that is the trekking pole. All right, so we're gonna move. I have my my sleeping equipment set out. So what I will say before we move is I'm not using a sleeping bag. I'm using what's known as a sleeping quilt. The difference is sleeping quilts a lot of times are either, the system is either made for you to attach the sleeping quilt to your sleeping pad. So when you move, you stay underneath the quilt and you're attached. It's kind of like a sandwich. Your pad's here, sleeping quilt's here, and you're just in the middle. You can also not attach it to your sleeping pad and you can cinch it up. But there is a gap of material because that's how they make it lightweight and breathable. And also the fact that if you're, like, let's say you have a shirt on and you're on your sleeping pad, then the theory is you don't need anything behind your back because you have the sleeping pad. My sleeping pad is down. It is 900 fill down. I think it's a 22-degree quilt, 22-degree Fahrenheit. Um, it is also the water resistant down. So I I do pack it carefully, but if it gets a little wet, it's okay because the down is water resistant, so it's not going to do that clump up stuff. And there's a specific name for the water resistant type of down, and I can't remember what it is. The company's name is Catabatic Gear, and so we'll take a little road trip here.